starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Warning. The following content is not suitable for small children. Viewer discretion is advised.
All right, there. Ooh, I don't want to be the guy. There we go. We are live this week. Filmmaker David Black joins us. David is the filmmaker behind such films as Horror House. Well, I guess that's a TV series. Horror House, Dramatica, Diablo is his latest film. Toxic Alien Zombie Babes from Outer Space. David joins us this week. We're going to be talking about all that. David, thanks for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
Awesome. So you're located in Australia, so it's probably like 2 p.m. on Friday for you right now. Thanks for coming on. I know it's really weird hours for you. Tell us a little bit about this Toxic Alien Space Babes from Outer Space, because this is really interesting. You're doing this, you're taking footage from people from all over the world.
Yeah. Well, just before the lockdown started, I was bringing out a short movie every month, and we had a short movie to go called Clink Clunk Clonk, and the lockdown happened. And Clink Clunk Clonk, I knew the lockdown was sort of coming, and we were allowed to have 5 on a set, and so this was going to be made so it could be done under the restrictions. And of course, no sooner was it scripted and ready then we went into stage 4 lockdown in Melbourne, which we're still in, which means we couldn't have anyone on a set whatsoever. And so I said to the director, the guy that was filming it, I said, you're allowed to go off script with this. If you can do anything at all, that's fine. I mean, I'd already done it as recorded it as a narration, so we didn't have to have a soundy on set, holding up, the boomstick and that. But now all we had was just a poem, and I decided to film myself with the iPhone, and I brought it up really close to my mouth, put on the black lipstick, and did the narration that way of cling, clang, clonk. And anyway, the guy comes back and he's actually kept virtually to the script, and I couldn't believe it. There's no one allowed. You can't have anyone on the set. What he'd done is he'd set his camera up, put a mask on himself, and filmed himself 5 times. Every prop that I had ready to go, he'd actually made for himself. So I'm watching this and I'm saying, this doesn't look like it got filmed in lockdown. I've got 5 actors there. You couldn't tell it was him 5 times because he'd put on a mask. Mm-hmm. And although there wasn't a mask in the script, there had been discussion, will we use makeup or a mask? So he's there 5 times, and with this mouth talking, wherever he's passing something, the mouth is up there. So it looked like Big Brother on a screen. And I said to Gerardo, if I can come up with 10 more ideas of how we could film something in lockdown that doesn't come across as looking like a whole lot of Zoom footage or, people with people just filming themselves, I think we could do a feature. And I just expected that to be just a throwaway comment. But he said, yes, I'd like to do a feature. So I spent the night and I thought of all of the different ways that you could film something and have it come up as decent footage. And I think I came up with 6, 7, 8 ideas. I'm not sure, but we decided to go ahead. So we started scripting it purely so it could be done remotely. The next thing was finding people around the world that could self-tape, so we could because when you self-tape nowadays on your iPhone, you can do HD to 4K. We only need HD. So as long as somebody follows the instructions, and Gerardo came up with a lot of instructions. Now, we're not just making a film because we're in lockdown and this is the weirdest bloody year we're ever going to see.
Yeah.
I said to him, look, let's reflect what's happening this year, so that if somebody looks back at this in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, they're going to go, oh, aha, I remember that. So we're covering everything from 5G towers to murder hornets, all your crazy conspiracy theories, people living in lockdown. And another idea, which pretty much came up immediately, was let's pay homage to a lot of the 50s to 70s sci-fi films, because they're very clever. For instance, Attack of the 50-Foot-Tall Woman, if you really stop that and start thinking, you'll realize that when the hand comes down to pick up people, it's a hand up close to the screen, so it looks like it's coming from a 50-foot-tall person. And they're using little dolls, and they've made things up. Or so between forced perspective and the usage of dolls, and this is all pre-green screen. I thought, right, this is an era where people really thought outside the box, and we're going to have to think outside the box now. So we're paying homage to these old 50s to 70 movies, hence the name Toxic Alien Zombie Babes from Outer Space. And we've been filming remotely. I look for actors that can self-film. We've got guys that can do the cleanups, so the sound doesn't always come in perfect, although there have been a few pro crews. Not everyone else around the world's locked down like us. So some DOPs have just picked up the shot list and everything and filmed it, and we've just got them back as good as if we'd done it ourselves. And then in some cases, for instance, we had a magician in Canada, and so we had him in a park doing his magic trick, but we needed about 10 kids to be able to be in the audience.
I saw you calling for footage. I was going to film my kids, but I didn't get a chance to, but I saw that. Yeah.
It's not too late. We pretty much got saved on that because one woman had 4 kids and was able to follow instructions. There was another guy that lives locally, but too far away locally for me allowed to even travel there. And I'm not allowed to meet with him anyway because of the lockdown. And because he already makes his own films, he was able to film his kid. We realised, you know, the magician is standing in a park. We only have to have the kids sitting on grass. We can layer it, put them in the front, put them in the back. That wasn't even one of our original ideas. It just came up that way. So sometimes you can match backgrounds. There's just a zillion things we thought of that we could do so that we can actually make a film where we don't have to apologise and say, well, it's not as good as it could have been because we're in lockdown. It's got to stand the test of time. It's got to be as good as if we weren't in lockdown. And I won't make promises, but what I'm getting back looks that good.
Do you feel that these innovations you created are going to carry over after the lockdown and everything ends?
Probably. That's why we're not publicising it too much, because I don't mind people copying, but I don't want them to copy us and beat us to the gun. These sort of innovations, I was reading about something similar 20 years ago. So we're going back to like Windows 98 on your PC. And they were saying you're going to be able to record in a studio in England and have one musician there, but you'll be able to have musicians all around the world in different studios, and somehow with a video link like what we've got here, have them linked up. And I started reading that some musicians were managing to do it, get their they couldn't possibly with the bandwidth then have done it this way, but they must have been sending off hard drives to studios or whatever. But they were talking about the concept 20 years ago for musicians. So in the last 5 years, we've caught up, and now it's filmmakers that can do that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really is thinking outside the box. I've seen a lot of ideas for lockdown filmmaking, quarantine filmmaking, but this is really just probably the most unique idea that I've heard of yet. What's the editing going like on this? You're getting so many different footages, different quality. It's got to be a nightmare.
Well, I've actually got a data stick behind me somewhere that I've got to plug in today, and that's going to give me all of the footage that we got up to last week. That's so I can get my head around the sections and start joining them together. Because this was another thing. We couldn't actually script it from beginning to end because we might not get vital pieces back. So what I did was I put together a skeleton structure. And so basically it was in 14 sections for the 14 days. You've got to be incubated if you've got COVID. And on the first part, I said, well, you'd be seeing the aftermath that something's going on, but you won't see a zombie yet. Maybe you'll see a UFO. Day 2, you're going to be seeing a UFO, and you're going to be getting a lot of denials happening from the mainstream press, but you're going to have all your conspiracy theorists coming out like crazy. Day 3, day 4, day 5, it just builds up, with, seeing a UFO, seeing a group of UFOs, seeing one toxic alien zombie babe, seeing a horde of them, seeing a babe after doing a kill grow to 10 foot tall, 20 foot tall, 50 foot tall, then total outright carnage of the space attack. Now I've got to start looking at it saying, does this footage, can I fit it into 14 roughly equal chunks? I already know from what I've seen that I can't. So I'll be going back to the editor and saying, can you shrink the zombie babe from 50 foot to 20 foot here? Can you put 2 zombie babes in this? So the idea was have the structure. If someone doesn't come through with their footage, the film won't fall apart. And at the end, I'll come in as a podcaster, and I'll start to put it together by talking about what's happening. So we had that plan from the beginning. But everything I've seen so far looks pretty good. It won't be till I've got the assembly edit done that I'll be saying, oh, Gerardo, I think that scene is too long. It's boring. It's not doing anything. Can we cut that back to a minute? And looking to see, do we need anything else? Have we covered enough? But all up, it's like, I don't think anyone will ever want to make a movie in this way again, but ideas in it they will certainly be using.
Do you think that some of these innovations might fizzle out because right now you have nothing but time on your hands, and when the lockdown lifts, you might get a little busier and it's just not going to fit into your schedule to do things this way?
I'm still working. I'm just working from home. So all of the work that I was supposed to do this week, from Monday to Thursday, I was too tired. I'm only going to be doing it over the weekend. So I didn't get handed a bonus of extra time, but other people have.
Yeah. Okay. I know I have.
If you look at it, I think things have just sped up. For instance, I'm in Melbourne, you're in the USA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. In the old days, when somebody wanted to promote, they hopped on a plane and then they went on to all of the different programs. So your big star hops off a plane. First thing, they're off to the morning show, and then they're off to radio shows in between and the breakfast drive time. Then they might stop at a place between 10 to 12 and have all of the smaller press come along and be taking photos, asking questions. Next, they're on the midday show, right through, all through the evening, and then they get off to their concert, And nowadays, you don't do that. You save the plane time. For instance, you plug in just like now, and I'm on a talk show.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to stay forever. There's going to be a lot of the bigger stars are going to say, well, look, this podcast has got 1 million viewers. That one's got 2 million viewers. I want to be on those two as a priority because I've got this coming out now. I think you're going to see, well, when it comes to podcasts, well, I used to be in a band and we were gigging quite a lot more than we should have. And one day, this is 15 years ago, some very small venue in New Orleans, as we're playing, they had the songs were coming out there, not our visuals, but people in that particular cafe were able to listen to Darkness Visible playing live at the Pony in Collins Street in Melbourne. So that was already being done. I think we'll see that a lot more, that they won't just say, well, look, AC/DC are playing, they're going to fill a stadium. Then it's going to be tune in and watch the podcast live. It's only $2.50.
Yeah, I was just commenting the other week how amazing technology has helped the entertainment industry. We can do a podcast. We can have guests from anywhere around the world. I can do a film festival online. We do so many amazing things online in the entertainment industry. I think it's just, we're going to get more and more of these incredible breakthroughs that we can use for the entertainment industry.
For sure. With cinemas at the moment in their lockdown, in Melbourne, there's a bunch of indie cinemas that are still taking on the films, and they can't show them to an audience, but you can go to their website and you can pay to watch it VOD.
Yeah, that's awesome. Around here, we have a lot of theaters that are doing like drive-in theaters. Well, not anymore because it's getting cold out, but they did like pop-up drive-ins. We had a lot of those this summer.
I hope those stay around.
I think they will. Yeah. I don't think that COVID's going to go anywhere anytime soon. I think 2021, we're still going to be in this same predicament. I think it's going to be maybe 2022. We'll start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but I don't think we're going to get out of this anytime soon.
Well, a lot of the Hollywood, getting old and words go out of my mind, but the people that make the big blockbusters, the big Hollywood studios, they're already starting to say, I'm pushing our release till October 2021. Now that's hitting the cinemas who have based themselves around the idea that they need a blockbuster to get people in the door. Cinema was already under threat before these lockdowns happened.
Yeah.
What happens with the cinema chain is they get the blockbuster, but they can get as little back as 10% on a ticket for the first 3 weeks. And then by the time the film's been shown for a month, they might get 40 or 50% back. But they don't make most of their money from the ticket sales anyway. They haven't for years. They make most from selling food.
Yep.
So cinemas have been in the food industry, whether they realise it, for a long time.
Yep.
And the ticket is the excuse to get people in the door. Well, they've been whacked already with VOD, and Hollywood has realised we don't even need these cinemas. We can go direct to VOD, and they've cut the corridor down for how long a cinema has the film exclusively.
Yep.
So bit by bit, the noose is tightening around the neck of the cinema owners.
Yeah.
And then the lockdowns have happened, and they're wondering, how can we survive? What can we do? Well, they can't keep chasing after Hollywood. That's for sure. Hollywood doesn't need them, and has given them the worst deals ever, and has now put forward their releases till maybe October. And even when they get them, the corridor that they're going to have them, they might not even have a corridor. They might say, we'll put it in your cinema, but we're going to VOD on the exact same day.
Mm-hmm. I can definitely see that happening. Tenet was supposed to be the big release that saved cinemas, and that tanked big time in the States, at least. Just didn't pull in anything. So people are not ready to go back to the movie theater right now. We have a film festival that we do every April, and this was pretty much right when COVID was hitting. We couldn't have our film festival. We had to go to online. So, I think more and more of these big films are going to be online. They're going to go straight to VOD. And you're
When-
right. You're right. Theaters don't need studios, or the studios don't need the theaters. The theaters need the studios. There was that thing where AMC wasn't going to play any Universal film because they're going to go straight to video with a Fast and Furious or whatever it was. But that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And then a couple days later, you hear AMC is going to go bankrupt. Like, come
Yeah.
on.
There was a law in the USA that the big studios weren't allowed to own theatres, and that was to stop them getting a monopoly with a big chain.
Yeah.
And that law is now finished or been overturned. I wish I could remember the name of it and be more factual, but because people are watching us online, they can just as easily Google it as I would,
Yeah.
But it means that Hollywood studios can now own theatres, and theatres are going to be going a dime a dozen because they're going to the wall. A lot of them will go under. Chains could very well start buying. Studios could start buying up chains and only featuring their own movie. Which what it means is, if we want to save cinema, and cinema owners want to stay in business, they have to realise they're actually pandering to a small crowd, not a big one, the specialist crowd, the crowd that go off to the festivals. And some of those festivals are huge. And the stars that go to those festivals, like the guys that are in The Walking Dead, like you mentioned AMC, the top 5 or 10 stars actually make more money from going to conventions, for being paid to be speakers, signing autographs and getting their picture taken from those than they do for one whole series of 10 appearances in The Walking Dead. So it's there. They just have to understand their market has changed, and they can't be. That market doesn't chase big Hollywood blockbusters. They can't say to themselves, "Oh, we're going to be saved by one film." You need bread and butter lines.
Mm-hmm.
If it's just one film, you'll be hanging out for that one film to save you every time you're just starting to go a bit skint. So they've got to embrace their true audience. And if you think about the conventions, not all of them have film festivals. I think the majority don't. And the majority don't show films. So people are actually going along, and I think the money over here for the bigger ones is something like $150 to $200 to go into a festival.
Wow.
I think your ticket starting prices are at least $50 for a day. Is that right? I mean, the studio, if people are willing to pay $50 to go in to a convention where basically, to me, it just looks like I'm going into Victoria Market. We've got a market in the city. And I think, wow, people pay for stalls there, but they don't charge the person to come in to go and buy from them. They charge at these festivals people for stalls, and then people are willing to pay $50, $100, $150 to go. How could cinemas be having trouble, trying to get someone to watch an actual movie for $15 or $20? It's because they're not looking at their true audience. They're looking at the mainstream. Well, why would you do that? You can only fit 250 people into a cinema. It's fine for TV to look at the mainstream. I mean, maybe half of the people in the world still have a box that you pick up TV on. So they want to convince all of the people that live in an area to turn the dial and turn on the TV. You can only fit 250 into the cinema. Why would you be looking at the mainstream? I think the cinemas haven't, majority, not all, haven't understood who their audience is and to give them what they want. And for that, they really need to start to embrace not just old films that have come out, but the independent filmmakers like myself. I'm making a movie that's purely targeted, really, to people that would go to festivals and people that love 50s to 70s films, and they like a bit of schlock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw a comment made. I think you made it that Toxic Zombie Alien Space Babes is going to save cinemas. Can you go into that?
Yeah, I've got a feeling that's been a flop. because I've put that out there now with the press release, and only a couple of the bloggers, and a lot of these bloggers are my friends. If I twist an arm, I will get an article, so I don't twist an arm. You know, they've looked at it and they've just wanted to be polite, and they haven't gone with it. So the idea that I put out that has just fizzled as this.
What got my attention?
Only a couple got very excited. If cinemas were showing the indie movies, just like I feel that there was a whole era when I was in my teens that was big in Australia, but probably wasn't known about overseas. And it's the golden age of Ozploitation. The government had put in a tax break called 10B for film producers. And it was such a good tax break. I think basically you can get 100% of your money back. So people didn't mind investing in movies and losing all of their money because they got it back on tax. Okay. So we had, if you're into it, we had at the cinema a lot of movies coming out. And so there would be one come out next week called Dead End Drive-In. Mad Max was one of these films. There was Turkey Shoot. Every week or 2 weeks, there was another one of these films. And I always remember a crowd being at them. Now, the films, when I look at Wikipedia, they all lost money, but I don't think the cinemas did. I think the cinemas have to realise that the type of crowd that they need to survive, and they need any crowd to survive, quite frankly, is the crowd that would go along to see Toxic Alien Zombie Babes from Outer Space. So I was saying, cinemas, I will give you this for free, right? You'll get 100% of the door take. But I realise you don't rely on one film to save yourself. So the idea with waiting for Tenet was just wasn't well thought out. Yeah. I would need maybe 25 other filmmakers to jump on the bandwagon. Now, the filmmakers are in a worse situation than the theatres. I got friends that make films, and they can make them for maybe $15,000, $20,000, but it's a whole year of their work. Now, those films will get trotted out to the American film market and the Berlin film market, and Cannes has got a film market too. But yes, Ron here said, I'm sure Brian Trenchard-Smith took advantage of that. Brian Trenchard-Smith put out Turkey Shoot. He put out a few of them. He is, in my opinion, one of the leading people. But Peter Jackson also took advantage of it. Anyway, getting back to this, the filmmakers have got a worse shot. Well, if they can get an agent, because you need an agent to sell to a lot of the people that take a stall at the film markets, they quite often get 10 grand a pop. When I say that, basically, they say, look, we'll take on your B-grade movie. We want the rights to it for DVD for all of Europe, and we'll give you 10 grand here. Another one will say, we want the television rights for 15 countries, and bang, there's another 10 grand. Every time they get 10 grand, they actually made a loss. I mean, to get by for a year just to pay your rent and your food, you need $40,000. If your film also costs you $20,000 to make, and that's really on the low side, you know, you're talking $60,000, and you get 2 to 3 deals before that's it. And your movie is basically stitched up. You can't do anything with it. You can't put it on YouTube. You can't do any. The people that have bought the rights have got those rights, and you got 20 to 30,000 back. I'm saying, time to break the cycle. That's a load of nonsense. Let's look at the way business really works. Now, I mentioned with the cinemas, they're not making the money on the tickets. They're getting some back. They're not going to throw it down the toilet, but they're making most of the money from selling food. They could easily expand on that and sell merchandise too. Now, if you look at a food place, you know, McDonald's Corporation, they make most of their money on the rental of the properties. They're not making it on the food. I don't know if they actually do make money on the food. They might make some, but they buy the place that the franchisee then rents, and they make their money on that. When I first got into the creative industries, I wanted to be a cartoonist, and the comics in the newspapers were syndicated. And somebody once said, this was right at the beginning, they said, Dave, if we buy your comic, we're only going to give you $25 per week for your comic. You can't make a living on that. And we're actually giving you more than the syndicates, than we actually give to the syndicates for that. And I spoke to a syndicate, and the first thing they said is, no, you won't make money from the sale of the comic strip. But what happens, if we get the comic strip into the main newspaper in Melbourne, then we can sell merchandise. If it's Hagar the Horrible, the people will buy Hagar the Horrible lunch boxes, you know, for back to school, and the pencils and the pencil case. And for summer, they'll buy the T-shirts. We have to have that cartoon strip in each state if we want to sell merchandise. Try to sell it in a state where you don't have the cartoon strip. Nobody's bloody well heard of it, and the merch won't sell. Mm-hmm. So your cartoonists weren't being paid for the cartoons. They were being paid for the licensing. And as I go through it, industry by industry by industry, most people don't make money, don't make their main money off of their main product. For instance, the guys from The Walking Dead. When I heard that they're making more money from going to conventions, I realised this is where the film industry is at. People might not like the word fame, but you're going to have to become famous. You're going to have to build your following and sign the autographs, get your picture taken, and that's where it's at. So for the filmmakers, stop throwing your money away and having your film locked away where only a limited number can see it. You want to get it out to as many people as possible. So I'm making the film free. Yeah. Everybody that's in it has worked for free. You know, they've worked volunteer. And I've heard it all before where people say, oh, don't work for exposure. That's the biggest load of fucking bullshit I've ever heard.
I hear that a lot too, yep.
I used to be the editorial cartoonist of a newspaper in Australia called The Truth. It's long gone now, but it was a tabloid with a page 3 girl. Do you know the type?
Mm-hmm.
I think we had maybe 16 million people in Australia at the time, maybe 18. And this thing had a readership of 1.5 million. Now, at the time I was doing that cartoon strip, basically I met 2 prime ministers. I had one do the foreword for a comic book that I did. I was always being seen with the stars. I was just too young to know what fame was and what you do with it or have an agent. Mm-hmm. And I only got it through exposure. Yeah. I did a whole lot of free artwork for pubs and clubs and places just to get the experience, and that stuff was landing into papers. And so when I went for some publicity for a comic book I wanted to do with The Truth, the guy had already heard of me, and the editor called me in and said, do you want a job? And bang, I landed a top job because I was already known because of the exposure. So obviously if you're going to do a lot of work and somebody's only got a following of 50, that's not exposure.
Yeah.
But when you've got your artwork pole posted on every fucking pole across Melbourne, nobody could go anywhere without seeing my artwork. And somebody posted some of those old posters on my Facebook to a Facebook group about 3 days ago. And did you see I went and clicked them and put them up 2 days ago as a status update?
Yep.
Almost nobody out there knows that I was a cartoonist and I was a big name. But at that point of time, you could not go anywhere in Melbourne and not see my artwork. If you picked up the free newspapers in the pub because there was Beat and Impress, and they were given to pubs and clubs for free. They had 60,000 circulation. You opened it up and you started seeing through there ads for pubs and clubs that I'd done. So you couldn't miss it in the pubs and clubs. If you picked up the Truth, and 1.5 million readership's pretty big, you saw it. You walked out the door, you saw a whopping big A2 size poster that I'd done for some place, and those A2 posters I did for free. So if you get the right exposure, yes, it'll get you work. And I owe all of the people that are in this film to get the film as seen as widely as possible so that they've got the exposure. And if somebody happens to be an actor in Texas and somebody says, well, what the hell have you done? Who the hell are you? And they go, oh, I was that person in Toxic Alien Zombie Base from Outer Space. I go, oh my God, so you were. I loved you in that scene. That's what real exposure is.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got a couple of friends of a show that are going to be in your film. Celeste and Morgan Parker from Hex.
They've already done their pick.
You've already done their bit? All right.
I'll get to see it this weekend because I got all of the old footage in. But we scripted up for them that they UFO cultists are really. Now, this one's a good one as an example. I had in mind the Heaven's Gate people and wanted to do a play on that, but I couldn't get 2 people to play the people from Heaven's Gate. So we had to adapt it. So we've got our UFO cultists and we've got them selling merchandise and putting on a funny skit. So a lot of this sort of thing is just having to be adaptable. But yeah, fingers crossed. People, if it's successful and lots of people see it, even if they hate it, you know, if everybody's going to see it and they say, "Oh my God, it's the worst bloody film you've ever seen," you have to go see it. You'll never see something this bad again.
I love movies like that.
I've seen some of those movies. Yeah.
No, this is a great time for a film like this to come out because nothing new is really coming out on TV. So the nostalgia is kicking in. So when you put out a movie like this, it kind of warms people up to what they used to watch. You know, that you're hitting the 70s films like that.
Well, it will come out in a good time because supply and demand. We're probably going to come out in January now, but I think lockdowns will continue right through to March on and off. Ireland's just about to go into a lockdown as nasty as what Melbourne's had, and other places in Europe are going to be locked down. And they're all going to be locked down for 6 weeks to 3 months. So we'll be coming out where some people are still stuck at home. There's nothing they can do, and they want more product, and there's less coming out because big studios are holding their product back, and other people just can't film.
Right.
So yeah, it's a good time to come out. The future actually will belong to indie for a very short time before Hollywood takes it back. So those that can actually, Ron's just made a good point here.
Yeah.
I think we're on track for a content drought when it comes to TV and film. He's right, and it's actually happening now. There's a lot of the series that you might have wanted to watch were put on hold because maybe one actor got COVID, or in some cases the costs became too high. I did my COVID-19 certification for film, and I was only 10% through it when I realised I may as well finish it and say I did it. But we can't film like this. We can't have every prop being cleaned down with an alcohol swab after being used. We can't go to all of these extra precautions. We wouldn't even get any filming done.
Right.
So, yeah, the precautions the big studios are going to have to take are bumping up the, it's reducing how much they can get done in the time, which already bumps up the cost, but also increasing the cost with all of the extra people they have to have on site. So, yes, there'll be a content drought.
Are you running into anybody leaving the industry and getting different jobs now just because they can't do it? They can't afford to not work?
I've read about it, but I'm at a much lower level where I'm a hobbyist, so
Okay.
I don't make a living from it, and most of the stuff we're doing is volunteer, so people aren't getting paid to be on it. I mean, there are some fees you pay anyway. So if you've got a makeup artist on, you have to give them a kit fee. And when I look at how much over the kit fee we're giving, you don't really go to work for a place for $10 an hour, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So there are people with token payments. That's not a living. That's, it, you know, it's just making sure they don't go broke from having to pay for mortician's wax and fake blood, etc. So I don't know people leaving the industry, but a lot will. Actually, if what you're getting at, is this an extinction level event? Yes, it is. And if we look at extinction level events, all we know is what the scientists tell us. But it seems to me that there's a lot of animals around that were around when the dinosaurs were, but they're small ones. And the dinosaurs were really big, and they're the ones that died out. So they needed a lot of food to eat. So anyone with massive expenses who's a dinosaur, they're the ones that are going to have trouble. Now, Hollywood did hit something like this before. The films have been getting more and more expensive to make every single year. And Hollywood actually went through that. And I think Cleopatra was considered one of the most expensive films ever made. And Ben-Hur was considered expensive. And by that stage, the studios are saying, the costs are so high, when we release this, we cannot get our money back. How can we continue?
There's no way they could. They were charging 35 cents a ticket. There's no way.
Well, out of the blue, everything changed. Out came Easy Rider. Out came Midnight Cowboy. So those had much lower budgets, and Hollywood changed. They realised that was the end of this these big blockbusters. So and out came edgier, cheaper movies to make. But you go through that cycle because people think when they're in competition, more is more. One person thinks, just got to throw more money at it. We're going to outbuy them. We're going to outbid them. Money's always going to win in the end. Doesn't.
Just be more inventive.
That's what Easy Rider and Midnight Cowboy are. When you think of what those two movies are about, that's really being inventive. I saw both of those on TV. I was too young when I saw Midnight Cowboy to realise that the guy was having sex with men. I couldn't quite work that bit out.
I saw that when I was young too, and yeah, it took me a little while to realize what it was really about. But yeah, I think we touched on this during the film festival during our Q&A, is that having less money forces you to be more creative, forces you to be more inventive. So
it does for those that make it. 99% of the stuff I see in Melbourne, and I'm supposed to promote Melbourne. I don't feel I'm in competition with Melbourne, but 99% of the stuff that's made on a low budget is absolute shit because people are copying each other. So I already know that I watch a lot of local stuff. I run the Australian Short Film Network, and we get about 20 Aussie short films put in there for a monthly competition. It's free to enter, where the winner gets the Movie of the Month laurels. I already know that I'm going to see maybe 10 short movies that have got plinky plunky piano in the background whilst someone stares off into space.
mm-hmm.
And someone who's angsty and adolescent might get into that, and at film school they say, oh, he did that, I'm going to do that too, and she did that. So you got people copying each other with the same crap. When I watched a little bit of a film last night, and I realised maybe I shouldn't even be up here talking about great films. It was about the shot on the straight-to-video era, and there were films like Puppet Master on it. Are you familiar with that era?
Oh, yeah.
I'm watching it, and there's this one fella that's making props, and he's saying, well, I only had a week on this one and a week on that, This one came out good. That one didn't. And I'm watching special effects like the 50s and 70s to the 70s, or even better than the 50s and 70s, where people have actually made. He said Night of the Living Dead was a huge, inexpensive indie milestone. Actually, that was not an inexpensive film. There were 5 guys that put their money together for it, and it cost about the same as a house. So for 1966, 67, it's inexpensive compared to Cleopatra.
Yep.
But by today's standards, that film cost $1 million. I think it's about actually 5 people mortgaged the house. They already were making a living in the movie industry. I've seen some of George Romero's ads where he made ads for TV. You've got a little submarine going through the washing machine. And I'm looking at that and thinking, I don't remember ads that good when I was a kid in Australia. He was very clever. But Night of the Living Dead wasn't inexpensive from my view. But getting back to these other films, I think there was a studio that they mentioned in it called Blue Moon. Have I got that right?
Full Moon.
Full Moon.
Yep.
Oh, man, I'm just watching these little snippets of stuff from it. And I'm going, those guys are geniuses.
Mm-hmm.
They are really thinking about the most imaginative stuff. Some of it you can work out how it's done immediately. So you see a big dinosaur and you already know it's a salamander that's a forced perspective. Then the next thing, you're seeing all of the different stuff they've done. Like there's this one guy that it's a puppet and the guy's got a lot of black on him so you can't see it. And he's walking around and it's a demon puppet. And I thought, I haven't got the budget to make a demon puppet like that. I looked at that and I thought, my God, actually, it's what I watched does relate to what we're talking about. I know I was waffling for a bit, but straight to video was an opportunity like now is. Whenever monopolies start to occur, because everything's always changing, an opportunity comes out. Straight to video was followed by shot on video. People would spend, I think, $2,000, which was a lot, but they'd get these big VHS recording cameras. I remember them. And they would go out and start making their own videos and shoot them and edit them. And they could actually put them straight onto a video through tape to taping and use a photocopier to make a cover and go off to an indie place, an indie video shop and say, can you put some of my videos out? And some would say yes. And guys like Shane Ryan managed to get his start. You've heard of Shane Ryan?
I don't think so.
I haven't.
Well, he's one of the guys that put out some stuff very cheaply, very quickly, and was getting his videos out to video shops. He spends a lot of his time lamenting that those days are gone, but there's been other opportunities that came up since.
Yeah, I worked in a video store late 80s to about the mid 90s, and I remember when Full Moon first started, it revolutionized home video. You know, now we were doing these direct to video. Oh man, it just completely changed the scene of home video.
Oh, the stuff that I saw, and now I've got to go out. I've seen the names of these films, and I might have seen one, but boy, something like 20 different titles were thrown up, maybe 25, and I thought, this footage is mind-blowing. It's very clever. They've understood that film is about fantasy, so you want to make things come to life, and there isn't CGI as far as I know. And I thought, yeah, but that's another era. Somebody realised there was a new market there, that you can go, forget the cinemas, go straight to the video. Later on, other people realised I can shoot something on video. I could put it in the back of my car. When I first started getting into being a creative as a cartoonist, I was reading a lot about what was happening in England with fanzines and the punk scene, and the new wave scene. And people were going off and pressing their own singles or making their own magazines and putting them in the back of their car and actually selling them on the street corner. The whole thing is about being able to produce a product and get it to an audience. So people who get stuck on this idea of the only outlet for my film has to be a cinema. They're dinosaurs in their thinking. They might not be big eating a lot of stuff, but their thinking is ancient and they'll go under. People that understand it right now, there's an opportunity if they can see it. So while Melbourne's under this terrible lockdown, it's only been 1 week that I'm allowed to go outside the door for more than an hour now.
Jeez.
But wow, it's only been 1 week that I'm allowed to travel for more than 5 kilometres, and it's only a week since the curfew got taken. But despite being really severely locked in, we saw an opportunity, and we're working with the whole world. So we're actually not locked in. The sort of stuff we are filming, filmmakers 20 years ago had to hop on a plane. They had to go to all of these locations themselves. There's stuff coming back with footage from crews from Africa, India, throughout Asia. Most of it's actually throughout Europe. So you get to see a lot of Italy and Spain. But it's like we flew around the world while we were locked in. Mm-hmm. So we saw this one opportunity. What we're doing today, some of that will continue as part of the future for sure.
I think it's a great idea. Lockdown or no lockdown, it's a really good idea. I saw you posted a picture. Somebody was doing footage in Africa. Like these are like African tribesmen. Like you don't get that in other indie films. So I really think it's
looking forward to it.
Super unique.
Actually,
idea.
They're not actually tribes people. They're not far off it, but they're not. There was a music video being done.
Okay.
And I managed to get the people shooting the music video to shoot a very short skit that I'd written. Now, I did touch base with 3 different African filmmakers who wanted to film stuff for us, and only one's come through. There's been too many difficulties with, for instance, they were finding it near impossible to upload their footage to get it to us, because we're taking for granted that in the West, you could probably upload so much just from your phone.
Yep.
Some of the people we're talking to really have put together their cameras from next to nothing, and they have to be very clever with what they're doing. So we're talking about a lot of very poor areas where I'm talking. They can get onto the internet. They can talk to me. There are language barriers. Some of it makes sense. They do have trouble with what technology is available. But that being said, have you heard of a zombie movie that I think came out in the year 2000 called Colin?
I don't think so.
There's one to look up. The guy that did Colin, it went out to all of the movie theatres, got a release, like a proper big movie. It won at Cannes, which is why he managed to distribute, but he shot it on a mini DV camera.
Wow.
People get back to me and say, I've only got a phone, and I'm going, your phone's got HD,
Yeah.
I get some people say, I can't work with that footage, it's less than HD, and I'm going, my God, this film went out on giant screens. It's on a mini DV camera, and the editing software he used was the editing software that came with the camera. Everybody told him he was a nutcase. Everybody told him it couldn't be done. Well, it did. I don't believe he ever made a second movie. He made money and got out of it all.
Cashed his chips in.
Mark Price.
There you go.
But the guy realized he did a lot of point of view shots in his film, and he realized that if you were looking out of the eyes of a zombie, they might not be so clear. So he wrote his film around the fact that he wasn't always going to get a clear shot. Ron has actually hit the nail on the head. The budget was £45.
Wow.
That's what it cost him.
Wow.
So
I have to go look that up.
It's not the only time somebody has thought out of the box and created something. So if you could make a feature movie with a mini DV camera in the year 2000, you could make a feature film now.
Yeah.
Anybody could if they've got the skill. I've still got 2 mini DV cameras. I never could do anything much with them. All of the footage that we shot from my band, when we used the mini DV stuff, I had to come up with ideas of why it was so crap. What can we do? And my first idea was, well, if it's going to go on a big screen and it's just going to get all pixelated as it gets bigger, why not use 6, or like a comic book page, have a whole lot of different frames like we got here, but maybe a bit more clever. I could never convince anybody that edited to take me seriously and do what I wanted.
Yeah.
It's only in the last 6 to 12 months that people have realised that I might not be an idiot and they're taking my ideas seriously, and we're seeing them put to work. And I wasn't expecting them all to work out, because the normal thing is you come up with an idea and you try it and you're ready that it could fail.
Mm-hmm.
But you keep trying different things, and if you've thrown 10 ideas out and one worked, you got a winning idea. I've been lucky that all of my old ideas and the stuff I'm bringing forward now that's being used, all of it worked.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Yeah, I've got a ton of things that I wanted to do that just never worked out. But when you get that one thing that does work out, it feels pretty amazing.
Well, I've got some things that aren't big ideas. It's just stuff we scripted and we film it, and I go, oh, that really didn't work at all. Why was it working? It was working in my head. I put it on paper. I nutted it out. I talked to everybody. For all intents and purposes, it should have worked, and it's crap. And it does happen. It does happen a lot, and you have to be prepared that that you will have footage that hits the cutting room floor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of the questions that I hear a lot, and this is always a question that comes up when I do a Q&A, is how can an independent filmmaker make money? Is that even, is it even possible?
I don't know. I believe it's possible. I haven't made money, so I didn't actually look for it. Yeah. Whenever I got offered it, I did different things. For instance, I was offered with my short films being shown at quite a few cinemas. All of those cinemas offered to pay me, and I looked at it and I thought, I don't want to take the $10. Here's a struggling person who's got a cinema of 80 people. They've worked for years and built an appreciative audience, and I know that it's only a tenner. That if you and me were in the pub and I said, oh, I forgot my wallet, you'd say, oh, look, mate, here's a tenner. You can do the next couple of rounds or something. But I've said no, and I've asked them, if you really have to, is there an animal shelter in your area? And there nearly always is. So they make the donation of whatever I would have gotten to an animal shelter. So when it comes to grabbing money, my plan really is get your profile up, get people to know your brand. I'll give you an example of it rather than just finishing the sentence. Look, at these conventions, I started noticing there are people making money who are only in 1 or 2 films.
Mm-hmm.
That was it.
I've seen actors that were in The Walking Dead or that were like background zombie number 4 have their own table at conventions. So it's crazy in America.
I first picked up on it with Helicopter Zombie. I don't want to knock the guy. I made friends with him.
Yeah.
But I saw it, Helicopter Zombie. I went to his IMDb page and thought, well, there's nothing on there really. But everybody remembers the zombie that got up and the blade went.
Mm-hmm.
When you're a filmmaker, you start to look at things differently. You say, I would like to do this. Now, what is the problem with this? And you go, now that prosthetic to build up the head is going to take 3.5 hours. It's going to cost me X number of dollars. I've got to convince, I've only got 2 people that could actually do that. And by the time you've planned it out so you don't even kill the actor, you know, the clever person is your prosthetics person. Maybe the producer who is working out, like myself, who's working out that deserves a tiny bit of credit, but there's a whole lot of artists behind it that deserve the credit.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done background extra work where you get made up as a zombie and you do stupid stuff. And I thought, right, all you got to do is have been in one film in the 80s, and lots of people are doing this, so I'm not picking on Helicopter Zombie.
Yeah.
He's not. And then they've got the table there. They can go to the printers and get 1,000 cards printed up, and that'll be what they'll sell through the year. They sell the autograph for $20, and they've only got to get 3 people buying an autograph in an hour, and they're making more than you make at the front desk of 7-Eleven.
Yep.
So if you can do it at that level, then I'm not talking shit. Basically, you've got to get your profile up, and you will be you'll get more of your money from your profile. It won't just be conventions. You've heard of Johnny Rotten from the Sex Pistols.
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes look at the publicity that they got, and how clever Malcolm McLaren was. But what got me is one of the things that Johnny Rotten or John Lydon made most of his money for was doing ads for butter in America. England, sorry. Because he was known as such narcissistic shit, always, attacking everyone and giving them crap in interviews, he became the ultimate guy to have on this butter ad. And he made that much money, he was able to fund a tour by his band, Public Image Limited. He's been in done more with Public Image Limited than that.
Yep.
But that was all profile because of getting this publicity.
Wow.
I thought, if nobody knows who you are, nothing's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, the whole thing is based around exposure. The whole thing is, if somebody brings everything they've got to the table for this film, and they do something that everyone's talking about later, and I've got one scene with the priest, and this guy just, oh my God, did he do a good job. I gave him a decent enough script that anyone could have delivered the script, and there were jokes in there. But to do all of the stuff he did, he went to a cathedral, didn't ask permission to film, and he went with a film crew, and it looks like we have spent like the $20,000 for the location fee. And he has done this brilliant job, and he didn't just do his scene over a few hours, kept going back to different places, getting different angles. He got Gerardo so much footage on it, and he acted really well. And I thought, a lot of people are going to come off of watching Toxic Alien Zombie Babe, and they're going to remember this priest who is a total misogynist, believes God is a man, and ends up getting zapped in the balls. And they're going to go, yay, I'll remember him. I don't know what he'll call himself, but that could be what launches him internationally if I do my job properly and don't fuck up. I don't think the cinemas really are where we're going to get the exposure from, because 200 fit into a cinema and 2 billion can watch YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, our film festival went virtual this year for the first time, and I was really surprised with how many people we reached. We would do it in the theater, and we would get maybe, we'd sell 50 tickets a show. Sometimes we'd sell out, but most of the time we were getting, 40, 50 people. And online, we were just getting people buying tickets all over the world. So I was really surprised how many people were turning in to these online movies. It's huge. I didn't realize it was as big as it is.
Oh, your sort of festival could do incredibly well, because if you look at it from my view, there's nothing much in Melbourne. We've got Monster Fest, so I'm not knocking them. Mm-hmm. Monster Fest is a film festival, but not really a horror festival. There's usually only 2 or 3 stalls there. We're looking at, say, Fantastic Film Festival, Texas Frightmare, and it's like, oh my God, everybody's there. If I could only go there, I could get autographs. Even Helicopter Zombie Man's there. I would buy one of his. And then you see that you're showing films and you've got all of this happening. If people can attend virtually, suddenly that queue that you had that takes 2 hours to get in, and this full place that can fit 750 might have people that couldn't have gone anyway. All the people from Australia, all of the people from New Zealand, all of the people that weren't going to be able to spend a couple of grand on a fare to come over to see that. So you've got something happening. Whereas the mainstream that's considered really big, earlier this year, I think it was something like 15 of the world's biggest film festivals decided to combine as one online film festival. Do you remember that?
Yep.
It was shown live. Some of this stuff was shown live on YouTube. And I went to YouTube for the opening night, and I think Robert De Niro was one of the people that came on to talk, and then Whoopi Goldberg, and I took a screenshot. And YouTube shows you how many people were there. And I thought, 7,500 viewers. And that's like the biggest stars in the world, and 15 film festivals combined. I've got a video on my YouTube channel with 350,000 viewers. And I keep looking at it because there's a plastic cock in there, you know. So 350,000 compared to 7,500. Obviously, some things are being beaten up a lot bigger than they are, and everybody's just believing it because of the lip service, because the reality was there. With a film festival like your own, you would be able to take advantage that, you know, whereas the mainstream press will go, it's just a bunch of nerdy kids, and it's just a bunch of stars we've never heard of. Look how many people go to them. There's a whole circuit of these. And they're willing to pay $150 to line up for 2 hours, come in, and they go nuts. They buy up the merch from various people who have made personalized merch of stuff that you won't see mainstream. So you've got, I think there's a fellow called the Clay Guy, and he's made little miniatures of George Romero and, you know, different horror makers, as well as the monsters. And then they'll go to the next guy that, or girl, I just use the word guy interchangeably, that you might be drawing up, you know, Art the Clown. I'll draw you an Art the Clown. And then they'll see, there's Art the Clown. Whatever we're doing that is supposed to be such tiny little numbers, we're actually huge. Our industry and our scene is massive. The cinemas have got to stop looking at blockbusters saying this is the be-all and end-all. It's not. They have to embrace that they have a fan base of people that are into pop culture, into schlock movies, sci-fi, horror, and your undefinable stuff. And so they need to have a merch stall when you walk in the door. I mean, to give you an idea of a following, you've heard of Rocky Horror?
No. What?
There are some cinemas that still show Rocky Horror on virtually a weekly basis.
We've got one here in Milwaukee. Yeah.
Every Saturday night. Funny story. I got to tell this story. We went to, I took a group of my friends to go see The Human Centipede Part 2. I don't know if I ever told you this story, but we went to go see The Human Centipede 2. It's a Saturday night. It's Rocky Horror Night. Everybody's dressed as the characters from Rocky Horror, right? You've got the guy dressed as the transvestite. You've got a guy dressed in like gold boxer shorts. And, you know, hey, what are you guys here to see? Because we're dressed normally. We don't have a costume on, right?
Yeah.
We're the ones out of place, right? What are you here to see? Is this first time for Rocky Horror? No, we're here to see The Human Centipede 2. Oh, you're weird. Why are you going to see that? You know, guy dressed as a transvestite calling me weird. Every time I hear the Rocky Horror, I got to tell that story. So
it's become mainstream now because people are used to seeing it. But, you know, if you gave some of these films like a 10-year break and a new audience came to them, you know, there's some mind-blowing stuff from the past.
Yeah.
Just even the quips from Mae West. I mean, I could just imagine, your woke culture going nuts with all of the sexual innuendo in there. Is that a gun in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me? And think about it. You wouldn't.
Yep.
I can't imagine a girl coming up to me saying, "Hey, have you got a stiff?" You know, but that's basically it. Mae West, back in her day, was incredibly outrageous. She's forgotten now. You bring back her stuff and colorize it, and people would be going, "Oh my God!" You know, she got destroyed through, I think, the Hays Code. Yep. Suddenly, the very thing that she was making a living from wasn't allowable anymore. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the cinemas do have to understand that they're not mainstream. The mainstream has passed them by, and they could make a lot of money from the people that love the cinema experience, people that remember seeing films like Earthquake with this sense around. You know, that's the cinema experience you're going for. You want the big speakers, you want them to rumble, you want the big picture, you want the smell of the popcorn.
Something you can't get at home.
Yeah, the mainstream isn't really after that necessarily. They're after whatever the latest trend is. This is people that will spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on a piece of plastic from Japan that is a simple cartoon of a kitty, a Persian cat.
Yep. I may or may not have spent hundreds of dollars on pieces of plastic. Not kitties. Not kitties.
You're not into Hello Kitty?
No.
Yeah, but we've always been in changing times. I actually picked that up from playing an online game called World of Tanks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. When I started playing World of Tanks, and they start you off with all of these pre-World War I tanks, and people talk about the good old days, that the rate of change was not as fast as it is today. Well, you start with your World War I tank, and then next thing you upgrade the treads on it, then you upgrade the engine, then you upgrade the turret. And I'm looking at that, and I start going onto Google and actually researching this, and I go, oh my God, they did actually have that upgrade, and they did have this one, and they did have that one. And they take you all of the way through to post-World War II. And I realised that the rate of change, some people say, oh, look, World War II, there was a war on, so the rate of change actually became faster. But I realised that it didn't. If it did, it wasn't that extreme. It wasn't quantum leaps. And I realised that tank technology went like that. Then I thought, well, hang on, what about the phone? You start like in, 1910 with a phone that you pick up and you talk to the operator. Actually, before that, you start with one that you crank, and then you talk to the operator. Then you've got one that you talk to the operator. Then you've got one that's got a dial on it, the rotary dial. And you look at telephone technology. You start looking at the different technologies and you go, technology actually always has moved at roughly the same pace. If we look at our computers today, we look and we see that there's a screen. You've got your tower and you've got your mouse. 1998, I had a screen, I had a tower, I had a mouse. That's 22 years ago. What programs did I use? I used Word, I used Excel, I went onto the internet. And I thought, there hasn't actually been a quantum leap. I mean, yes, our technology's changed, it's gotten faster, but the rate of change, I would say between 1 year and 5 years, you have totally changed around and new opportunities are there and old opportunities are gone. You get maybe 15 years of anything running and then it's starting to be phased out. So anybody looking at what's happened is that we had to embrace technology much more during our lockdown because we were locked in, but everything coming along has been there for a few years already. What it's done is it's sped up some things going out the door and sped up some things that were just coming up. So it probably sped up this 5-year cycle by 12 months, VOD was going to be destroying the cinemas anyway.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to let an uncomfortable gap here.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Go ahead, Tom.
Oh no, I was just gonna tell him where can we find your movie when it drops in January?
Hopefully everywhere.
Okay.
The first thing, I promised a guy that puts out DVDs that he could have a period of time with the DVD to himself, that you can't get it anywhere else. I'm half regretting it because I believe that the same number of people will buy the DVD anyway.
Okay.
So he'll have at least a few weeks, maybe up to a month, of having it on DVD. Then I'll probably put it on YouTube, put it everywhere. While he's got the DVD, I'm going to let anybody that has a cinema or a show show that. So they won't be competing against YouTube for the first month. I still don't think it's a competition. I believe that people that want to own it, because it'll only go out for like $15 on the DVD, that they'll buy the DVD regardless of whether they've seen it or not. But I did promise him that he wouldn't have the competition. So that will go out on SOV video, and that was arranged before we even started shooting it. So, but after that, everywhere that I can, every horror show host that has a TV show, I'll say, yes, you can have it, but you can't put it online outside of the television until this guy's had his 1 month corridor to sell DVDs.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that collectors are going to want to buy the DVD. You know, collectors want something physical. They're going to be fans of the film. They're going to want to own it. So I don't think you'll have a problem selling DVDs at all.
I don't think he will. And I think what he'll find is that this will be a bread and butter line because it's so unique and with what we're doing. And because it does actually look like a blockbuster. It isn't full of all of the boobs and gore that he asked for. Actually, we've got more gore than what he asked for. It's not full of all of the boobs that he asked for. Well, I just kept saying to all of the girls that said, oh, do I have to pull my boobs out? I said, let's just go for cleavage. I looked at it and I thought, why are people still using boobs as a massive marketing device? I mean, I'm not far from a beach where if I was actually allowed to go to it and it was summer, there are topless girls there on the beach.
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, we don't have that here.
I don't know if it's legal, but I'm 56 now, and I remember there were topless girls on the beach when I was 17. So I don't think it's the case of getting the boobs out. I think it's more of what you do with them that is going to interest people. So I thought boobs were a big thing when you had the Hays Code and you weren't able to show even belly buttons on the television.
Mm-hmm.
But ever since The Sopranos, and then certainly since Game of Thrones, you can't rely on gore and the things that that the B graders felt were exclusively theirs that they could do, that they could break the code. You've got to find new rules to break now because that's all mainstream. So, yeah, we got the gore, but we didn't set out for a gore movie. It's not gore all of the way through anyway. It's just that everybody seems to love putting a bit of tomato sauce on themselves and going, ah, you know. Yeah, we've got a lot of cleavage and sexy things done with the cleavage, but yeah, they'll be disappointed that I don't think there's any. I wouldn't say no if there were nipples in it. I'm just not pushing for something that I think people make too much of a fuss of, because I first have the fuss made by the actress themselves that think they just gave me something fantastic. And I'm thinking, oh, fuck off. We've all got a body and there's 7 billion people in the world, you know. Don't try to pretend you just did me a massive favour. Then the second thing is you're pushing it to a public that have got the internet, and almost everybody, whether they admit it or not, according to the figures, almost everybody surfs for porn at some point. So if it's there and if it's thrown in your face and it's not enough. I mean, you can't just have a killing on a movie. You've got to be like Hitchcock and decide, how am I going to build it up? I already know that if I'm going to kill this person, people have to care about what happens to them.
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to draw it in? How am I going to milk that whole worry, anxiety that you've got that something's about to happen to somebody you care? How am I going to do something with it? So nudity, I just thought, nah, it's not going to cut it. You know, I would probably, if I want to use it in a film, need a director there, preferably myself, so that, but also to work with the editor later to make sure they don't cut the footage badly, to make sure that we've got everything happening. Otherwise, it's like if you do a magic trick, but you don't tell everybody, I'm about to do the greatest magic trick under the sun. You will not believe your eyes. You've got to get people into the mood and do something with it. So, yeah, a lot of cleavage, no nipples at this point. So,
if you do need nudity, I know Molly's willing.
Molly is
to do nude scenes.
No, she's not. Tom's willing to speak for Molly.
Tom wrote a script. Tom wrote
yeah,
a script for Molly, and it's just her in the shower, just nude. So I think Tom just wants to get her on film nude.
Molly can give you nude, but she can't give you cleavage.
The best nude shower scene, I don't think you actually see. I think it's Janet Leigh. It's shower scene in Psycho.
Yeah.
I don't think you see her in the nude.
No, you don't. She was wearing a tan bodysuit in there too, so she wasn't even nude herself in the shower.
Everybody talks about that. Is one of the most famous scenes because of the way it's cut. Yeah, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with nudity, but I'm just saying that it's not really needed, and I wasn't going to go to the trouble of all of the crap that the actors would give me later on it.
Yeah, Tom, it's not needed.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with it when you've got it. There's nothing wrong with it when you got it. But I do remember. Do you remember Blue Movies? Long before the internet.
Yep.
I think the world centre of Blue Movies was Canberra, which isn't that far from Melbourne. And my brother was having a bucks night because he was getting married. And somebody had managed to get VHS Blue Movies. These are all hardcore. And they're actually blue. The cassette is blue.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
And we got 30 guys at this barbecue. No end of stuff on the barbecue, no end of alcohol and everything. The guy walks in with a stack this big, and he's got a smile on his face, and he's going on, I've got Blue Movies. Everybody is there for about the first 5 minutes of the first movie. By the time you got to 7 minutes, almost nobody was there. They were getting a beer, they were having a chat by the barbecue, because it's just all there all of the time, all boring.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he must have had 10 of them. So, yeah, nobody watched more than there was one person watching 20 minutes later when I walked through. So, but
you know not to invite that guy back again.
No, I don't think it was weird. I just think the guy that you'll always find someone in the kitchen at parties on their own. They're not good at mingling.
Yeah,
right.
That's true.
So I think it was just the guy that wasn't able to mingle. It was an excuse to be sitting somewhere doing something, but he wasn't doing anything. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I picked it up then, and years ago I was running for Darkness Visible. Used to do some pretty outrageous shows. Our stage show for the band involved a lot of props, a lot of gore, a lot of blood. They're a bit over the top, and we used to have burlesque dancers in between the bands on the nights we put on, and we'd be the last one because we always used to get girls ripping their tops off and jumping up on stage and going crazy. One day I said to the co-promoter, I've got all these people from the bondage scene that have been coming along, and a bunch of them want to be doing this thing that's all nude. He said, no nudity. And I go, what the hell? Have you seen what we're doing? He said, yeah, the minute you got one naked person walking around the place, You'll destroy the impact for every burlesque dancer. You will not have the big ending for your show that you want, where people suddenly see that a whole lot of girls took their tops off and went wild. They'll have been seeing boobs all night. They wouldn't give a shit after the first 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a good time to put on the pass and advertise, just like saying, you know, hey, come along to the Bucks party. We've got blue movies. The reality and what's going on up here are totally different. In fact, everything about what we're watching on a movie is what's up here and how you pace it, how you cut it, what you do with it. I don't think with all of these kids going to see the blockbusters that are keeping the movies alive, I think they're just the mainstream of society that will follow anything that's big. And the only thing most of these blockbusters have got for them is that for 2 weeks, no matter where you live, you'll see on the side of every bus the latest movie, you know, like a big poster. No matter where you surf on the internet, up will come an ad for that movie. You have the billboards everywhere. If you pick up a paper, the movie is just so heavily advertised, it's in your face 30 times a day for 2 weeks. So what are the kids doing? It's peer pressure. Oh, you didn't see the latest movie. Those kids aren't talking about the movie, you know, next week. They're talking about the next thing that peer pressure is telling them to do. Those of us that go along to things like what you're putting on, your festival, and going to see the movies, we actually know the names of the actors in the movie. We know the directors. We are into them. So the cinemas have got to realise the only people that give a shit about the cinemas are going to be the people that are actually into that whole culture, not the people that it's all based on the peer pressure and you've got to have the latest, otherwise you're not cool. You must have seen the latest movie or you're not cool.
Yep, those are what I call casual movie fans. They're not the hardcore fans. They're not the ones that are going to go back 3, 4, 5 times to see a good independent film just because, you know, it's not a blockbuster or whatever. So, yeah, I definitely agree. All right, well, I guess we should wrap up. We've been going for almost an hour and a half. When can we see the film?
January, hopefully everywhere possible, but for about 1 month. It's only going to be exclusively on DVD through SOV Horror, which is shot on video horror. So they've got that for a month. And during that month, I've got a lot of horror show hosts that have said, can I show it? We go out on cable TV. So there'll be a whole lot of places just to look, and you might see that it'll come up that your local cinema said, yes, we'll show it. And maybe your local horror show host has decided they'll show it. And then after that little corridor, then I'm just going to chuck it on YouTube. And anyone that can steal it can steal it.
Awesome.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I'm going to be sharing links on our page, I know, and maybe we can get it screening here in Milwaukee. I work with a theater for the festival, and we do a lot of independent horror film screenings. We've shown some local films, and we've shown some other independent films. So maybe we can get a screening here in Milwaukee. I'll see what I can do. I think that would
I'd suggest making it a party. So you
I
have
would
a
do
party. You have a party and you have it on, but you say, come dressed as from your favourite sci-fi or horror film, and sell some merch. You know, a whole lot of UFO merch.
Yeah.
Have sci-fi comics and everything. Make it part of the. I think this is all about an experience rather than necessarily just the film, and just the way we opened that up to the whole world and said, hey, you want to be in it? Contact me. I'll get you a script. We'll get you a shot list. Let's see if we can work together. I think it belongs, when it comes out, it belongs to the world.
Yeah,
So,
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, make it belong to the people that go.
Films like this are always better seeing it, you know, with a group of people too. It's completely different experience watching it yourself than watching with a group of people where you can feed off your energy. You know, you're just having a party, you're having a good time. So yeah, I definitely would like to get a screening of this. We'll see what we can do.
Yeah, well, we'll end up having it on a downloadable link that we'll give to everybody that wants to show it, no matter where they are, and we'll have in the link the trailer and a high res copy of the poster. So, yeah, I just reckon anybody, everybody. And if they want to tie it in with a fundraiser for dogs and cats and, homeless people, whatever charity, I'm all for that too.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, it really is. All right. Well, I think that's all we have time for this week. Join us next week when Logan Fry will join us on the Pop Culture Podcast. Thanks for coming on, Mr. David
Thank you
Black.
very much.
Yes,
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.